Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today marks the 1-year anniversary since the last concert that was held at Madison Square Garden prior to it being shut down for the pandemic. We're going to take a look back and talk about what this last year without concerts was like. Joining me on this show will be Vincent LaRussa and Ed Ferrity, and we'll share with you our thoughts and our experiences on the last concert we were at before the pandemic hit, including Ed's story about being at that final MSG concert before it being shut down for the past year. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments about what your last show was, as well as when you think we're going to be able to get back to going to concerts. Alrighty, let's jump in and let's get started with our conversation on the year without concerts. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm excited to have with me not one, but two of my longtime friends with me. First off, you guys have seen Vincent LaRussa on my show, The Chemist. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for having me again.
I'm glad you're here. And then another one of my longtime friends, Ed Ferrity. How you doing today, Ed?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me first time.
Yes, this is exciting. And Ed, Vin and I always talk about that we've been friends for 45 years. I'll get it right this time, Vin. Ed, I think you and I have been friends for like 30 years now or something like that, right?
I would think it's coming on 30 yeyears, yes.
Are you going to do something special for our 30-year anniversary for us?
Of course, maybe it'll be a concert in the summer. Who knows? We'll see.
Ooh. Well played. Oh, man. So what we wanted to do to get together today is talk about, I guess, a year without concerts, right? So we are coming up on nearly a year since any concerts have taken place. I think Ed's going to have a really cool story to talk about with the last concert he's been to. But, what I want to do first is just kind of set the stage of, and Vin, maybe you could go first. Do you remember what the last concert was that you attended before the pandemic?
Well, if I don't, you could help me out because you were there with me.
Okay.
It was in Allentown, and it was Kiss, of course, with David Lee Roth opening. Mm-hmm. And little did we know then at that time, what was about to come in the next month or so. But,
and I think if I remember that right, the Allentown show was February 4th, I believe, was the date of it. And exactly like you just said, there was no sign. I know coronavirus was a thing because I was dealing with it at work with people who were in China, but we weren't in the slightest bit concerned that night at the concert at all.
Right? I don't even remember seeing anybody wearing a mask as far as in the crowd, or we went out to eat, you remember, right before the show and stuff like that, but yeah. Yeah,
it was pretty much, as far as coronavirus goes, a non-event. So, and I want to set the table this way because then my next concert after that was actually March 4th. And I was on a business trip. I had to go to California. And oddly enough, and I know you guys and my wife made fun of me, Kiss just so happened to be in California at the same time. And so I went to the Staples Center.
This has got to be a Netflix documentary series. I mean, because we have to investigate how this always happens to you. Every time you travel, Kiss is there.
It's 2 years in a row. My boss sent me to California, and 2 years in a row, Kiss just so happened to be playing there the same week. But I have the emails to prove I had nothing to do with it. But nope. So, but it was March 4th. I went to see Kiss at the Forum. No, not at the Forum. Sorry, at the Staples Center. And the biggest thing, there was a couple of things I remember about that concert. Number one, Kobe Bryant had passed away a few weeks prior. So that was a big thing at the concert. They acknowledged him. We were slightly aware of coronavirus, but it didn't stop me. It didn't even worry me at all to go to the show. I did take a picture though that night, which I think was kind of, at the time I thought was weird. I think they were doing I Love It Loud. And during I Love It Loud, somebody who works for them came up on stage with like an iPhone, and I guess was filming something, probably like to go live on Facebook. And the person was wearing a face mask. And I remember thinking to myself, I snapped a picture or two. If I can find one, I'll put it up on the podcast. But I remember thinking, well, there's something I'm never going to see again. Somebody walking around at a concert wearing a face mask. Little did I know, right? So that was March 4th. So from February 4th to March 4th, there's a little bit of awareness, but not a big change in the way we were going about things. And that's why I find it so fascinating. Ed, you were at, well, why don't you tell the story, right? You were at Madison Square Garden.
Yes, it was March 10th. It was a standalone concert. It was a 50th anniversary celebration for the Allman Brothers Band.
So I'll stop you right there. So we excuse that it was the Allman Brothers, but continue.
Almond Brothers? So is that the Hershey Almond
Yes,
Brothers?
the Hershey.
And Mike knows I'm a big Allman Brothers fan. I've been going to, they've had, before they had broken up, they were doing for many years, I think from 1990 on to like the late 2000s, they called the Beacon Run, where they would play like 13 or 14 shows at the Beacon Theater. They were all sold out. And so I used to go to that every year. And it was one of my biggest concert memories. I loved going to see the Allman Brothers. It's called the Beacon Run in the spring. It was in March when they would do this. So it was fitting that March 10th, they were going to have the 50th anniversary concert. Now, Greg Allman has died, which Trucks had passed away as well at that time. So there was one surviving member who was on stage, but it was the band that was been touring with Greg Allman for many, many years. Derek Trucks, on the guitarist Warren Haynes. So it was a tight band. It was a nice band. But the thing that I remember about that is that the weekend right before that, the March 10th was a Tuesday. That weekend, whether it was Saturday or Sunday, Governor Cuomo had declared a state of emergency.
Yep, I remember.
And that was really the week when I thought COVID kind of was really starting to ratchet up, and we were believing that it was going to be something we had to be concerned about. I remember going to work that morning. I worked in the city, Lower Manhattan, and I remember people on the Long Island Railroad, people on the subway, with some people wearing masks. And I was a little nervous going into the show.
Well, okay, interesting.
Yes. I also remember that I had to get a T-shirt because it's a standalone show. And Mike, you know me for many years that I am a big fan of the concert T-shirt.
I think that was concert T-shirt number 8,212 for you, right?
It very well might be, if not higher. And the interesting thing was that I wanted to get a T-shirt so bad that they actually had a pop-up store on 14th Street that was open that afternoon. So my lunch hour, I took the train up to 14th Street, went to the pop-up store, and they were sold out. It was a huge line. In fact, they were actually, now that I think back, but they were only letting in a certain amount of people at a time when I went.
Oh, really?
Yes. And they were sold out of the shirt that I wanted. So I remember I was leaving work early to get to the concert. I remember I was meeting my friend for dinner beforehand. And what I did was I actually went in a little earlier to the vending booths, and I got the shirts that I wanted. I bought 2 shirts, so I was very happy.
2 shirts, not 1, but 2.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you got to go with the long sleeve shirt and the short sleeve shirt.
So hold on, Ed. So do they actually have like the dates on these shirts?
Yes, you'll see in the back of here if you can see for the camera.
Yep.
March 10th. And the same with what I'm wearing, the same thing, March 10th. Okay. And it's interesting enough, I went with my friend Bill for dinner. We went to this place called Pensy in Madison Square Garden. It's attached to the garden. They have a bar there, and they have little stands where you can get different types of food. And I remember we were actually saying, do we feel safe going to the show? Should we have done it? Should we have skipped it? And we both said, nah, we both are big Allman, my friend Bill, we're both big Allman Brothers fans, so we had to go. There's no doubt about that. But when we went into the show, some of the ticket takers were actually wearing face masks. It was sold out. I don't remember anybody in the stands wearing a face mask, but I do remember noticing certain security and the workers there, some of them were wearing not all, but some of them were wearing face masks. And I just remember it was a great show. It ended with one of my favorite songs live here in Whipping Post. The last song of the encore. So in a way, I look at it as kind of fondly. It's weird. It's like this is before the world changed. I heard one of my favorite songs played live.
Right. So now let me ask you: while you were at the show that night, did you guys know that was going to be the final show at the Garden, or was there any talk about that?
I don't know, because I don't think I can speak for myself. I couldn't even comprehend that. I mean, I remember when my office shut down to work remotely the following week, we thought it was going to be 2 weeks to.
Right.
I think they actually called 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right.
And we expected to be back. I mean, and it was a big thing. Like we were expected to be back within 2 weeks. Little did we know what would happen.
Right.
What was interesting though is during dinner, I remember my friend Bill and I were talking about COVID and what could happen. Could it get really bad? And the one thing that we both said, we said, you know what, if this gets really bad, and depending on how it's handled, this could become a campaign issue for the next election. So, not going more into politics, it was just interesting that we had said that, if this gets bad, this could be an issue. And lo and behold, you all know what happened.
Right.
No need to go into that.
Well, what's funny is I remember now that you're saying like how that weekend was right around, when things started to ramp up in New York and some concerns. So Vin, I don't know if you remember this, that weekend that Eddie's talking about, you and I actually did a podcast episode because I think it was the Friday night, maybe it was a Saturday, but sometime that weekend, Kiss canceled one of their meet and greets, which was a big deal at that time. So Ed's concert was March 10th. So this was probably like March 7th or 8th of last year.
Right. Okay, I'm looking at the calendar now.
Yeah, and that was a big deal that Kiss canceled the meet and greet, and everybody was like, oh my God, things might be getting bad if Gene's willing to leave money on the table. But you and I did a podcast episode, and I remember this, and it goes, Ed, right to what you're saying. We kind of spoke about, what do we think? Coronavirus seems to be becoming a thing. And we both on that episode was like, go to concerts, have a good time, play it safe. It's a big difference from the year I ended up living. And you guys both know I took it very serious. I pretty much haven't done anything. But that weekend, Ed, you reminded me of this. Yeah, we thought, all right, still not a big deal. It's amazing how then you were February 4th show, wasn't on the radar at all. On March 4th, I'm at a show and I'm like, I'm a little bit aware of it, but zero concern. And less than a week later, Ed, you're sitting in a bar thinking, hey, this is going to be a big deal. Potentially, this could impact the upcoming election, and it's amazing how that ramped up for over a 5-week period.
It escalated very quickly from March 10th on.
Yeah.
Yep. And since you were talking about that weekend, I kind of looked at my calendar and see that I played that Friday night, the 6th, and that Saturday night, the 7th. And I remember specifically, especially in the 7th, when I played a gig in Jersey, that I was definitely going about my business a little bit more. Like I was going in the bathroom and I generally don't touch the handles on the bathroom doors.
Right.
But even
you normally Felix Unger.
Yeah. But even more so, I was really thinking about kind of what was happening more in what was in the news and being a little bit more cautious and thinking like, is this safe? Should I be here? And it wasn't yet that following weekend where it really, everything was shut down. But I was definitely aware that weekend on those 2 gigs and in my travels, especially being out. And I could tell you, nobody in the bar that night had a mask on or anything like that,
right,
from what I remember.
So now this is interesting. So Ed's final concert, Madison Square Garden's final concert as of right now, was March 10th. Did you play any shows with any of your 17 bands that you're in after March 10th?
I just caught the 17 band part. Yeah, I think I did maybe 1 or 2, definitely 1, but maybe 2. I'm trying to remember.
In the March time period?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it was afterwards.
No. It was afterwards. Yeah, I'm looking at it. No. Yeah.
So pretty much you shut down right at that same time. So Ed's saying he went to the show March 10th. You shut down playing with your bands right after that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So to me, that's kind of a great way to start talking about this because it really paints the picture of over a 5-6 weeks period. And we all know what we've lived through the last year, but we kind of forget how quickly and how suddenly that came up on us that from February 4th to March 10th, what a difference that was, And I don't think any of us at the first week of March was thinking we won't have concerts for the next year. Right. So I'll start with you, Ed. Have you gone to any shows at all in the last year, even if it's just small things that are like out in the street or whatever? Have you gone to anything?
I have not gone to any type of live performance since March 10th. No.
Wow. Would you like Vince to sing for you right now, one of his songs?
No. you could say.
I think we all.
What did he say? I didn't catch it.
We'd all like to hear that.
We'd all like to hear it.
Okay. Yeah. we'll save that for another time.
All right.
I'm not warmed up yet.
I'll let you off the hook there, buddy. So Vin, what about you with your band? Have you played? I guess you said you played two shows.
About two, but I mean, I'm estimating and guesstimating in my brain, just like quickly doing math. I probably canceled about maybe 50 gigs.
Wow.
Last year.
Ouch.
That's a rough estimate.
Right. That sucks.
With all my 17 bands, which is not really 17. I think it was 4 maybe, but yeah, about 50, maybe 60 gigs.
Right.
Were canceled.
So then between the three of us, I'm actually in the last year, the only one that went to a real concert, right? Because in November, forget the fact that I drove 4 hours each way, right? But I went to a drive-in concert where I saw Kix at a drive-in concert. And it was a full, 90-minute concert, full set. It's just we all sat either right outside our cars or in your car. So forget the 4-hour drive. If there was anything local like that, would you guys be open to doing something like that in the spring now? Ed, I'll start with you. What do you think?
You mean like in the type that you did, like the drive-in concert experience?
Yeah, drive-in concert experience.
I would. I know that there's a place by us, a little amusement park that was having some cover bands on the weekends. I wouldn't mind that. Mm-hmm. I also, as the virus went on and as we learned more about it, people's comfort levels doing certain things obviously changes over the course of the illness. And like, I would feel comfortable now, I believe, in an outdoor, whether it's a baseball game or a concert. So I think I am ready. Now I say that now sitting in my basement, but when it comes to buying tickets and actually going to the show, that might be a different thing. But I think I am ready now to go to an outdoor show. Okay. Assuming that there was social distancing taking place and there was other safety precautions in place as well.
Right. Now, what about you, Vin?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd be very hypocritical if I didn't say I was going to go to a show, because I'm trying to support something that I'm a big part of, and that's the arts and playing live music. Mm-hmm. But to Ed's point, as long as the social distancing rules are in place and everyone's really kind of respectful to each other, and I know in talking to you, you had a very positive experience when you went to the Kick show, and I think we're all kind of salivating for that experience again. And I think it being a different experience would be cool, like as a drive-in. I mean, I used to love drive-in movies, so the thought of like one of my favorite bands and a drive-in concert, that's pretty damn awesome. And I could be in my car, out of my car, you know what I mean? I could have all my accoutrements there and, not have to worry about smuggling in my jujubes into the concert or whatever, So, yeah, so it's something I would definitely do.
Yeah, I'll say, when I went to the show, it was beyond safe. I mean, there was probably nobody. I stood outside my car 95% of the night, 90% of the night. There was nobody within 20, 25 feet of me. Everybody was being respectful. Everybody was wearing their mask. I'll say I pretty much never felt safer at a concert. There was literally nobody around me at all. So if they do that again in the spring, in a nanosecond, I would go, even with the 4-hour drive.
The only thing I'll add to that is that, when did you do that concert?
November. It was like the first week in November.
Okay, so we're talking about 4 months, say, right?
Yeah.
So people are crankier now. People a little bit more tired. You know what I mean? Who knows if they're still going to want to keep them masks on or whatever. So that's just one thing I would go into it, just saying like, all right, you did have a positive experience in November, but I just know the climate has gotten even more, tense with, people feel, especially with the winter now, it's the cabin fever thing. And I hear a lot of people, I hear a big difference in people and their state of mind and their overall feel from November from now. I don't know if you guys feel or hear the same thing, whether it's with your families or with your friends. So I'm not saying I wouldn't do it because of that, but I would just be a little bit more mindful of being kind of like, looking around and watching, what's going on around me. So, and not have to get into it with anybody, because that's one thing I want to avoid at all costs.
Well, that point with cabin fever, and Ed, this, right? So every Saturday night for the past year, myself, Ed, and our wives have gotten together pretty much on Zoom to do it, just a chat, just to try to keep things normal. And this past Saturday was 45 degrees. And we were like, Ed, can we come by your house and sit around the fireplace? And we were like 15 feet apart from each other. I had a winter blanket around me, but it was like, I'm out of the house. This is wonderful. So I totally get what you're saying there. Totally.
So is it a fire pit? It's like a fire pit outside? You have?
It's a gas fire pit on the deck, so it's like we all huddled around it as it was getting colder, and as the flame was dying because the tank was near empty.
That's right.
Well, Ed, now that you have my number, you can invite me anytime. I enjoy fire pits.
Of course.
So, all right, go ahead, Ed.
One question I want to ask you, Mike, is as you know that I'm been huge concert person. I plan vacations around concerts. I big acts like the Rolling Stones. I wanted to make a point to take my boys to see them, which I did, as you know, and wanted them to see a Beatles, so we went to see Paul McCartney. So I'm very, very attached to
Good
my
for
memories
you.
of concerts.
Good for you.
Parenting done right.
Yes, absolutely.
The one thing that I'm a little nervous about as things get back to normal is I love a crowded concert. I mean, I like the fact. I mean, when hearing songs I like with a full crowd there, to me is great. When everyone is singing the lyrics, I'm just curious on how long before that returns, that normality where we can feel comfortable with people. And no one has the answers. I don't think. I'm just lamenting and seeing, what's down the road for concerts in the future.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Ed. So now we know in New York, the governor has said that you can start doing sporting events with 10% of the capacity crowd there inside. So
10%.
10%. All right. So if you want to go to a Knicks game right now, 10%. So if it's 15,000 people in the arena, 10%, it's 1,500 people they'll put in, and you have to have masks and you have to get a test done. And so there's all these different things, but that's the start. So Ed, I guess to your point, right? Part of the excitement of being at a concert is having all these people around you, everybody singing a song together. If tomorrow the Allman Brothers are coming back and you could see them at the Garden again with only 1,500 people socially distanced, do you go?
That's an excellent question. I don't know at this point. I still feel a little, as I mentioned earlier, I like the idea of an outdoor concert, outdoor sporting event. I'm not so certain indoors, even with only 10% at this point. But to that point though, like how long before we are back to normal is what I was trying to say right. too. Like 50, when was that 10% going to become 50, even 100%? I'm just curious on when we will be finally saying that this is a concert like I remember before 2020.
My guess, and obviously it's a pure guess, next year. I don't see it this year being 100% capacity. I'm hoping, we all live in New York, right? So we're not, especially you and I are not far from Jones Beach. I'm hoping this summer they do outdoor concerts at Jones Beach, even with 50 or 70% capacity, so you can still have a little bit of social distancing if need be. But I'm praying that they do that, because I'd go to Jones Beach friggin' every weekend if I could right now to see a concert.
As I would as well.
Yeah. Now, what about you, Vin? 10% capacity at a show. Do you go?
Well, still there is the element of not just being in the arena. It's getting to the arena, but your surroundings as you're walking through crowds and this and that. Some of that stuff is not so controlled. Mm-hmm. It's not like you could get teleported like Star Trek. At least, I don't have the technology in my house. Yet.
I do.
But
I do.
Yeah, that's why I said yet. I'm waiting. But I think a lot of it depends on who the act is going to be, you know what I mean? And how much I really want. Like if it was something like, if I knew that Kiss was going to be doing a couple of more shows and that was it, I'd be rolling the dice. Mm-hmm. But if it was another, whatever, B-level group that I kind of liked, and yeah, I enjoy go see, and I maybe would hold off on a show like that. But to like, what Ed says, like an Allman Brothers,
or not Allman,
or
not pistachio nut,
or if like McCartney was doing one last tour. I mean, I've only seen him once, something like that, or the who I've never seen, which I kick myself many times, about maybe something like that. I definitely would take more of a chance of, my surroundings and how I would get there and all that stuff. Make that as controlled as possible. Mm-hmm. But
so it's very interesting, because I think through the pandemic, all three of us I know have taken it serious with our families. Probably for health reasons, I've taken it most serious of the three of us, and that's not a knock on the two of you. It's just the situation. Yet I think I might go to a concert with 10% people only. I think if Kiss was coming to the Garden next month and I can go with 10%. There would be a draw there to be like, and I'm with you 1,000%, like the crowd not being around, it would be such a different feeling. But that was one of the reasons I drove 4 hours to the drive-in concert, is I wanted to know what that was like. I wanted to know, what's the feeling of being at a drive-in concert? You guys both know I'm a big Disney guy, and I wished last year in July I went to Disney when it was complete ghost town there, and there was like literally no wait, because I want to know what that feeling is like. I'd want to a little bit know, like, what's the feeling like of being in the garden with 1,000 people only, and I'm watching a big name band like Kiss or, you know, somebody like that. I think that would be hard for me to say no to. Very hard.
Yeah. Mike, on that note, have you spoken to anyone? I mean, what are the acts thinking? Do you have any idea from
you know
this? Like, what are they thinking?
I saw Kiss actually just booked a tour in November in Australia, and I'll be honest, my first thought was, no way, that's not happening. They're nuts. But I've heard that Australia and New Zealand is really like buttoned up with coronavirus, and there's not an issue. From what it sounds like some of the artists that I've spoken with have said, is they're concerned that these venues are going to look to pay them less money because there's X percentage of people there only. And the bands don't want to accept less money, not because they don't understand the business and the way it is right now, but they're concerned if they take 50% today, that when things are back to normal, the promoters are going to say, well, that's now your new price, and we expect you to always play for that 50%. And they're nervous to run the risk because of, I guess, some of the shady ways some of the business dealings are. So I think some bands are nervous, maybe not saying no, but they're a little nervous to say, yeah, we'll go out on tour and accept less, because they're afraid that that's going to be the new price going forward forever.
But it's not, I don't think it's just only that. I think it's also the fact that, you know, it costs some big bucks for Kiss to run their show.
Sure.
So if Kiss wants to put on that same show and they only have 10% capacity, well, they still have to pay everybody for that night. Right. And, you know, so it has to make dollars and cents to them and to everybody. Right. Mm-hmm. So whereas maybe another, well, like, it just seems to me every band has a big production these days.
Yes.
You know, so I think it really just applies. Obviously, there's different levels, you know, but I think that's a big factor in it too.
Mm-hmm. And Ed, I know that I agree with you, Vin, 100%. And I don't know how you get around something like that unless people bring out like the B stage or something like that, you know, which Kiss would never do, but I think other bands would.
But what if they turned it around and say, yeah, we're going to have less capacity, but we're giving you a concert, but we're going to have to pay a little bit of an upcharge.
So that's what I was just going to ask you.
Oh, okay.
So I would be willing to pay an upcharge. Now it depends on what that upcharge is, right? So if $100 ticket is now $1,000, probably not, you know?
Yeah.
But if $100 ticket is $250, maybe.
Does it depend on the band again, or is it
of
just
course,
your?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Ed?
No, I was just thinking, like, economically, well, it makes even sense. If some bands even just saying that we just can't do it because it's not going to make enough money. We can't charge that amount of money because there'll be some backlash from fans saying that it's an exclusive concert that only the rich can afford. So I'm just curious, you have that's factoring into bands' decisions right now as they're looking at hopefully the end of the COVID and how they're going to, you know, resume their careers and their touring.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point you bring up, right? So the backlash could be that now only the rich fans could afford it, right? And I'm saying I would pay $250 for a concert ticket, but somebody else might be like, I'm not paying more than $75. I can't afford it because I lost my job, I had to take a pay cut, whatever it is. That's an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So you have two forces going on, or you have a weakened economy where people have lost a lot of jobs and the money isn't flowing as it once was. And then you may have the bands and the artists, everybody who wants to they want a little bit of a recoup because they've lost so much money. Mm-hmm. So are they going to come back and say, well, listen, we have no choice but to charge more money because we lost so much money? You know, and even if it's 10% on top of whatever it is, T-shirts, beverages, you know, concert tickets, you know, how is that all going to work? Well, you're always going to have the people who have the money, you know what I mean? Right. But those people who really struggled, that ticket for $100, all right, I'll make it work somehow, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to lose a lot of those people? So...
Yeah, I mean, I think at the bare minimum, people would be very, very limited to what tickets they would be able to buy, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to spend, in my made-up number, $250 a concert ticket and go to 7 I just said if Jones Beach was open at 50%, I'd go every weekend, but not at $250. There's not a chance in the world.
I was like, wow, all right. I guess he's not getting any siding on his house this year.
No, that's right.
Or wonder if it's possible if like bigger arenas like MetLife Stadium or Citi Field or even Yankee Stadium would look to have shows there for acts that normally wouldn't play that type of arena, just to have more people in those things. I wonder if that's even a possibility or not. I'm just curious myself of that.
I would think that it's certainly a possibility, but it goes back to Vin, what you were saying before with the staging and all of that. So let's just use as my first example, Kiss, right? Well, they would need to have their arena show now to be the size of a stadium, right? Somebody like the Rolling Stones, that's easy enough, but they could fill an arena, they could fill a stadium. What do you do with bands like Night Ranger, for example, who's a club band? I can't imagine them. It's an interesting thing. I wonder how that would work.
Let me just say this as an idea, and I'm not giving them the idea, but if Kiss was to do a show, watered down, not even a damn Kiss logo, and it was going to be like old school, like they were playing in a club, but you were at the Garden, I would sign up for that in a minute, without all the bombs and
the four of them could be wearing Bass Invader shirts, and I'd go say them.
Fair enough. But you know what I mean? That's something different, right? You know what I mean? That'd be kind of cool if it was like a stripped down version. If they said, listen, we need to save money, but we're going to make the shows maybe not as whatever,
bombastic, right?
Yeah, like they did at the New Year's Eve show, which was incredible. But I would sign up for that, definitely.
So what about you, Ed? If the Foo Fighters were coming around and they was going to just be literally amps on a stage, and I pick the Foo Fighters, you can pick any band you want. Would you go to a scaled down show?
I would, yes, and I would think that would be fascinating just to see, just to even put in that in your book of memories, saying this was the COVID concert. This is what happened. This is how concerts were for a while, or this is what we had to do. So yes, I would definitely do that.
Very good. Now, Ed, didn't you just recently buy concert tickets for, I think, like later in the year? Yes,
November 13th. Jeff Tate is going to be playing Empire in its entirety in Patchogue, in the Stereo in Patchogue. So I had a couple of friends from out here, and they just said, hey, you want to go? And I said, sure. I'm glad it's November, because I don't know if I'd feel comfortable going sooner than that. So it's kind of, and I'm just, it's not my favorite show, but it's just nice to have something there, like a placeholder to say this is, hopefully we'll be back to normal by then.
And when you bought those tickets, did they make any mention or any reference to it being like only a certain capacity, or did you just buy a ticket like any other concert?
I don't know. Someone picked up the tickets for me, so I'm not certain, but I would believe that there would have to be some sort of precautions in place, but I'm not certain what those are, but there has to be, I would think.
Wow. Very interesting. Vin, do you have any tickets for any things this year?
I do not. I just have a couple of, some planned gigs, but
When are your planned gigs?
May.
Okay.
As soon as, as close to as May.
Outdoors or indoors? I'm just curious.
I believe one may be outdoors, but all the rest are all indoors.
Okay. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm a little, I actually did. I just remembered when we were talking, I played a show in the beginning of December, and that's when things were really starting to ramp up, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember.
And I was kept waiting for that phone to say, the gig was canceled. I was kind of, I hope the band doesn't hear me now say it, but hoping that it was going to get canceled. And, going and playing a gig like that, walked in, mask on, setting up, mask on. Right before I about to start, take the mask off. As soon as we were done with the set, I put it on. I mingled with a couple of people, mask on. Everyone had their mask on. That was a small venue, but it was definitely I couldn't wait really to get out of there. And that wasn't really a fun experience for me, to have it like that.
What type of crowd was there that night?
It was like a dinner crowd. So what they did was, they did it smart. You had to reserve a table, and they made sure the tables were separated. And as part of seeing the band, you got like a meal, a dessert, coffee, whatever, which made it more appealing for people to go because they were getting food and stuff like that. And it was just a place in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And so
that's interesting. So Ed, let's just say the Jeff Tate concert wasn't November, but it was June, right? Just to pick a month. And they were going to sit you and your friends at tables, so you're still socially distanced from others. I know you just said you're glad it was November, but what about something like that?
Something like that I would probably be comfortable with. I've been starting to go out to dinner now. Like my family and I will be going to Saturday night. We'll go like at 4:30 where it's not very crowded. But I think I would, if everyone was seated and there were tables and they were distance, I think I'd be comfortable with that. Yes, I'd go to that.
And I would think as more and more of society starts to get vaccinated, right, and forget whether you're pro or against it, but certainly by June, July time period, it looks like we're going to have 50% or more of our population vaccinated. I'd be surprised if they didn't do things like that, because I think what you just said, Ed, if people are separated and it's safe, why can't you do something like that?
Exactly.
It makes sense to me. Would you felt better, Vin? Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, well, it seemed even in the height of the pandemic, if a restaurant or a venue was able to still have it outdoors before it really got cold, they were still doing it. That really didn't shut down. It only shut down when they weren't allowed to open. Period. You know what I mean? Right. But when they were allowed to have a certain capacity or outdoor seating, a lot of these venues that I know about, they were having bands play. And up until I think it was October or November, I played outdoors before it really got cold. But what were you going to ask me?
I don't remember. I'm too old. I don't remember what I was going to ask you. But you know what? I will ask the both of you this. So I have the Kiss cruise in November. So Ed, you just said you bought concert tickets for November. Now, what if you had, like me, tickets for a cruise? In this case, the Kiss cruise.
I would probably have to respectfully decline that. I would not feel comfortable. Even pre-COVID, I was always nervous that I was going to get sick on a cruise ship. So I would say no to a cruise ship this close in time to the pandemic. So I would say no to that.
Well, a good friend of mine just told me that his family's thinking about going on a cruise, not a Kiss cruise or any music-themed cruise. But he was telling me that what he was told, that if you're on the cruise, you got to walk around with a mask at all times. Now, this is not November. I don't know. Well, right. I don't know the date, but I'm thinking, like, what's the enjoyment of walking around a cruise ship if you got to have a mask on? I would definitely. That's why I was like this. I am not. You know what I mean? If I want it to be ready and safe. I don't want to be walking around, especially on a ship where you're kind of confined. It's. I don't know. It just doesn't. That has no appeal to me.
Yeah, for me, what I think about, and you guys have both been on Kiss cruises with me as well. You remember what those shows were like, especially the outdoor ones. There's 1,000 people on the pool deck cramped in together.
Yep.
I just don't see how that happens. Not safely. I just don't see. I wake up every day and there's a part of me that's like, well, if it's postponed for another year, I'll feel relieved. I don't know what to think, but I can't imagine that would be a safe thing to do. Now, I'm with you, Ed, about doing an indoor show separated. I'm with you 1,000% doing an outdoor show, again, with not 100% capacity. But I don't know, it'll be very fascinating to see what happens this summer. I can't imagine another year with no concerts. So it's already been 12 months with these bands not touring. And, we said before, like Kiss doing a stripped down show. Let's be honest. Kiss doesn't have to play another show in their life, right? Gene and Paul and even Tommy and Eric, I'm sure that they're financially set and okay. But some of these other artists, I mentioned before, going to see Kicks, I'm going to guess that they need to work for a living, that they can't stay not touring for another year. And I have a friend who works the Garden as a ticket security guy. He's been out of work for a year. I know he's anxious to get back to work. So these guys and girls have to get back to work at some point. And I don't know. It's going to be very fascinating to see what happens.
But I think even when this dust clears and next year, whatever, you're still going to have the cultures changed forever in a lot of ways. I don't know how long it's going to go for.
Yeah.
But that even when it's, quote, certified safe, whatever that means, that you're still going to have people who are going to be in fear of whatever, because especially if they were affected, by a family member like I was, you know what I mean? You're always going to have that now in the back of your head, you know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, I just think this is, I hate to say, it's somewhat like the new norm. Not what we have right now, where things are shut down, but I think there's always going to be some element of where you're going to go to a show 5 years down the line, you're going to see a couple of people wearing, masks or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I wish that wasn't the case, obviously, but.
So, Vin, the Who comes around this summer. What's the criteria that you'll go to the show?
You're going with me.
So if it's 100% capacity, you go
this summer.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't. I mean, they already lost Entwistle. That already has less of an appeal to
Right.
But I don't know about that. Yeah, probably not. Probably not. I just can't see by this summer like the switch is going to be. All right, everyone go out and enjoy. Everything's 100% again. I just don't see it happening.
Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr tour together.
Well, he's trying to.
I was going to ask that same question. In addition to the who would be on your concert bucket list that you haven't seen yet that would perhaps tempt you to go out of your comfort zone for a show?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I have seen the Stones, I have seen McCartney, I have seen Ringo and his all-star band. I think it's always the Who. It's like because those, were always like in my mind, or if like for instance, if like Zeppelin got together with Jason Bonham, yeah, I think I would have to go see that. But probably the Who's my number one, Ed.
Okay.
What about you, Ed? What band could get you out of your comfort zone?
McCartney and Ringo might do it.
Yeah, that's true because I didn't think of them together. I saw them separately.
Right.
So
I saw them separately as well too.
Yeah.
That honestly, that might be it. I had it's funny you mentioned like the Eagles were always on my concert bucket list, and I actually saw them February 18th, a few weeks before the March 10th show. So I was on a good roll in early 2020 before the pandemic struck with shows.
And where that Eagles show, was that at the Garden also, Ed?
That was at Madison Square Garden as well, yes.
So what was the difference when you went on the 18th to the 10th? Well, I'm assuming it was like a big difference there. You said like some people were.
There was definitely in the 18th. I still knew about COVID, but it was kind of this thing that was overseas that that might come here. But March 10th it was here, and there was definitely people wearing masks. And I think it was even whisperings at that time, March 10th. I think if it was not that day, the day after when the NBA shut down, and shortly thereafter the NHL shut down. So it was like there was like talks like that, and I just remember seeing people, people with masks who worked at the Garden, and like I said, I remember talking about like, is this safe? Like, should we be even going to this concert when I was having dinner with my friend? The answer was obviously we said, of course we should go. We weren't going to miss the show, but it was just, but had a couple of weeks passed, I'm not sure if I would have made that same decision. It's interesting.
Right. That's very fascinating to me. Sorry, I think Ed's the only one with a concert ticket for the rest of this year right now, because I don't count my cruise as a concert ticket. So
yeah,
we got to get Vin. You and I have to find a concert to go to, I guess, at some point.
Next time you're getting in that car and drive it somewhere that's going like somewhat towards my area, just pick me up. I'll go.
So then let me ask you this. Yeah, go ahead. No, finish.
I was going to say, even if it's not one of my favorite bands, even if it's like, Kix has never been traditionally one of my favorite bands, even though I have majority of their, the discography, but I would definitely be up for that just for the, for the shenanigans and the ride and all that stuff. But
a 4-hour drive like I took to go to a safe outdoor concert, if that's your only choice, do you do it?
With you?
Well, of course, if it's with me, I know the answer is yes. So.
Yes. That's what I was going to say, because we did a 12-hour, 13-hour ride where you didn't allow me to pee.
That's right.
Coming home from Indiana. So that would be like a walk in the park. Yeah, I would definitely do it. Definitely.
What about you, Ed? 4-hour drive to a concert to be safe.
I would not do what you do and drive home that same night. I might stay over that night and drive back the next morning, but I would definitely drive 4 hours. Like I said, I don't know if I would do an 8-hour round trip in the same day. I might have to sleep that night and get up in the morning and do it.
Yeah, they actually
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say they actually call that a brun. Yeah, that's what he does to me. All right, we're gonna go to Indiana, but I gotta go the next day because my son has to go. And I'm like, all right, that sounds reasonable. And we do it, but that's
my thing.
That's his thing.
There and back.
Yeah.
Well, you
the question I was going to X-Mac is like last year. I remember there was a couple of shows I was actually looking forward to when everything got canceled. Was there any in particular? I was looking forward to the Black Crowes were going to do "Shake Your Moneymaker" in its entirety, the 30th anniversary of it, and then there was that big
nice.
The stadium tour.
You didn't know about that, Ben?
I didn't know about that. I got to talk to Ed more often.
Yeah,
the
concert guru.
PNC in the summer. I was looking forward to that, and also the big stadium tour. What was that, Mike? That was Motley Crue, Def Leppard.
That I had tickets too.
Right, Joan Jett and Poison. was the fourth band.
I was looking forward to that as well. So was there any shows you guys were looking forward to that never happened because of obvious reasons?
Yeah, I was going to go to I think we were all going to go to the tour, right?
Yeah.
We're all going to go to the tour. I had tickets to see Weezer a couple of times, which you both know is a favorite band of mine. But it's not like I felt this tremendous disappointment that I didn't get to see them last year, because I've seen them 15 times. So it's not like it was like, oh no, I've missed out on this golden opportunity. But I'm curious though, Ed, as I continue to think if there's any other shows. So the Black Crowes were going to do their whole album front to back. Have they said, are they going to still do that when touring resumes, or now is that done and over?
I think there may be. I honestly, I thought I saw some things on Facebook. I didn't really focus in on them, but I believe that still may be in the cards. Or they still, they did some live cast recently with that, Rich and Chris Robinson. So I believe it might still be in the cards. But once again, like I said, I'm still hoping every day that I see a schedule for some shows at Jones Beach in the summer. I know it's not coming at this point, but I always optimistic about that.
I think that's the ones that would nag at me more. If there was like a once in a lifetime type show like that, where a band was going to do their album front to back and now they don't do it at all anymore. I think that would probably gnaw at my side for a little bit. Like I had heard rumors, what is it? I guess November, December of 2019, that No Doubt was considering a 25th anniversary tour last summer for their Tragic Kingdom album. And I love No Doubt. I hadn't seen them in 10, 15 years. So I was excited about that. Now, I think it turns out the rumor probably wasn't true, but if it had been true and that was the one chance and now they're not going to do it, well, that's a bummer to me. Having missed my 15th Kiss show and 16th and 17th Kiss show on the End of the Road tour, whatever. I won't lose sleep about that, but it's those like special type of shows. Those are the ones that I would probably be disappointed, but yeah, supposedly Motley Crue is going to tour still this summer. In fact, I just saw articles the other day that supposedly they're still talking about it, but who knows? Who knows?
Are they talking about it? Not that whole big show they had planned for last year.
I think they are. From what I read, they was, but Motley Crue also said last year in May that the tour was still starting in June. So, I take everything they say with a grain of salt. Yes. But yeah, I just read an article the other day that sounded like that tour they're saying is still a go for this summer. But will I go if it's there? Yeah, I probably, if it's safe, yeah, I probably would. But I don't feel like this tremendous disappointment that I missed it last year, because I've seen all those bands multiple times. It's not the end of the world to me. The ones that I'll probably regret is the ones I don't know about yet. So if I was going to go see, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a band right now. The Who, right? Pretend they were going to tour last year. And Ed, I drove 4 hours to go see the Rolling Stones with you in Washington, D.C. so I could check them off the list. So if the Who never tours again, and like you, Vin, I never get a chance to see them, I'll be like, that sucks. Too bad, But I don't know yet what bands, I might have gone to see Ozzy last year at the Garden. I was talking about doing that, and obviously that was canceled. If he never tours again, yeah, maybe that'll disappoint me a little bit.
One of the bands, to Ed's earlier question, I mean, they're not really a band, but if they got back together, if the Police were to get back together, I'd be all over that. Yes. That's one I wish because they did that tour. I don't remember, what was it, the early 2000s? I think it was like
2004, 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah. That's one show I would definitely love to go see.
Agreed. Did you see that, Ed?
I saw that. I think it was 2005, the summer of 2005, I believe. Yeah.
I passed up going to see that, and I'm with you, Vin, 100%, because I felt they played the Police songs in the style of Sting, and I didn't like that. So, which was stupid on my part. And the last show of that tour was at the Garden. Yeah. So it's possible that the last Police show ever was right here in our backyard.
In our backyard.
And I didn't go.
Yeah.
Bad move. Well,
you know what? It brings up an interesting subject, possibly, that will bands who have not been together be more up to getting together, maybe being a little bit more sentimental? I don't know. Because, the people a lot of times when they realize I'm not saying the value of life, that's not the right way to put it, but you understand where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I do.
Say, maybe we should get together. Maybe. Who are we thinking?
Who are you thinking about that maybe could get back together?
The Police.
Okay.
But I'm just saying agenda. Hello. But I haven't really thought about it, but just thinking about that, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm just trying to think about bands that have broken up that I don't know. I never saw Fleetwood Mac, you know?
Really?
I know Lindsey Buckingham's not, well,
Right.
At least I don't think he's with them.
No, he's not.
But to me, I wanted to just stress, even though what the subject matter is, it'd be hard for me to go see Fleetwood Mac without Lindsey Buckingham.
Agreed.
Just like with the Eagles, it was really hard for me to go see the Eagles without Glenn Frey, because Glenn Frey was such an integral part from the beginning, and that voice and that sound. And the Eagles are one of the greatest live bands ever. If you ever just watch any of their concert videos, and just a great band. But when I thought or had the opportunity to go, I just said, I don't know. I just didn't have it in me. And, maybe it was one of those things I would regret now. I don't know, or later on,
So what did you think, Ed? Because you said before you went to the Eagles at the end of February.
Yeah, I actually thought about that too. Like Vin said, without Glenn Frey, is it really the Eagles? And I thought long and hard about that before I bought the tickets. I said, you know what, they were on my bucket list in some form or another. And I just, they were playing Hotel California some ties. So I figured, let me go. So I was,
that's a big sell.
Yes, and I was so that's what kind of pushed me over the edge. And I was a little concerned that it wasn't Glenn Frey, it wasn't the real Eagles, but people, whenever bands change their person, I mean, people say that about Kiss, Mike, right? That that's not really Kiss now, some people, right? Yeah. So it's I felt it was enough of the Eagles to say I was at an Eagles concert as opposed to some people who might.
And it was an experience. We like to use the word experience on this show. You were still having the Eagles experience. And I think, in thinking about it, just being out and having that concert and hearing the sound and hearing those great songs that you've heard since you were a kid. And maybe all the original members, or maybe there's only one lone member. I think you were talking about the Allman Brothers. There was like only one original member left or something like that, right, Ed? You said earlier?
There's two members left, but one of them, Dickie Bex, is not on terms with the rest of them. It's one original member was playing.
Right. So, but you're not saying, oh man, it's only that one member. But you go there and it's that same Allman Brothers experience as far as like, it's kind of presented a certain way. It's never presented like a Kiss show. It's never presented like a Motley Crue show, And how long do they play when the Allman Brothers play?
Almost 3 hours.
Exactly.
Wow.
So
3 hours?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's like
I don't even know how to. There's so many thoughts going through my mind that I'll just edit all of them right now.
but that's the experience,
With the 15-minute intermission between the first two. They always play two sets. They took a little intermission between set one and set two. So,
but this is what's
cool though. You're definitely getting your money's worth. Forget my personal opinions. Right? You're definitely getting your money's worth at a 3-hour show.
He's contradicting himself. A guy who drives 4 hours to go, whatever. You're not going to go to a 3-hour show. You would do it.
Yeah, if I like the music.
Well, I'm not saying the Allman Brothers. I'm just saying if it was a 3-hour Kick show and they were doing all their complete discography, would you go?
In a nanosecond.
Okay, so
in a nanosecond, yes.
All right.
Absolutely. So let me ask you guys this one. I thought of as we were talking about this. Are there any artists we think we've seen their final show, we just don't know it yet? So I mentioned Ozzy before, right? Another one that came to my mind was Elton John, maybe.
You know what? Now you're getting my memory, because I'm like, I never saw Billy Joel. I was
thinking Billy Joel as well. I thought maybe I know he was doing those sold out shows at the Garden, which I call which were great as well. But I just think that maybe Billy Joel just thinks I don't have to worry about this anymore. I mean, I'm rich enough. I'm just gonna wait. Maybe I'm not gonna take a risk anymore. I'm just gonna hang up my piano.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
Good.
Yeah, that's interesting. Will he decide I'm done? That could be. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Did you catch one of those shows, Mike? Those Billy Joel Garden?
No, I never did. That's another one like Vin. I've never seen Billy Joel in concert.
Really?
Yeah, I'd like to.
That was a fun time. I went to one of those shows. I think it was 2017. We went on our anniversary, right now, August 2017. It was very good.
Yeah, no, I'd like to. I'm surprised, Vin, you never saw Billy Joel.
I had tickets once, but I had to unfortunately get rid of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So to me, that'll be an interesting part of all of this. What bands will just fall by the wayside now because of this? Time will tell.
Will there be
Asia? If Asia reunion, sorry.
You're gonna laugh. I mean, I saw Asia a couple years ago on the with Yes and the prog rock extravaganza a couple years ago in out in Farmingdale.
I saw them maybe it was 6 years ago at the Count Basie Theater in New Jersey. It was awesome. And now I don't think John Wetton's even with us anymore. I think he's passed. So I'm glad I went to that show. But
we saw Yes Ed at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, right?
Yes, we did.
All right.
That's what you did there.
Fact, Mac, who was a special guest bassist for
you just reminded me of this like 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, I would not have remembered. Right? It was Geddy Lee, right? Played bass with them. That's right.
Yes.
So why did you go to that? For what band?
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Oh, who was being inducted that year, Ed? Do you remember?
Yes, I was a big Yes fan. I went. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, all right. No, but why Mike went, or he just was going with you because
I just enjoyed going to those things. But I think Journey was being inducted that year, if I remember.
Journey was being inducted. Yes.
Oh yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that interested me because there was a lot of rumors. Would Steve Perry play? Would he not play? And he obviously showed up on stage with them and then walked off stage. I remember that, Ed. That was so heartbreaking, right? He's up on stage, they're getting ready to perform, and then you just see Steve Perry walk away. I was like, no. But yeah.
Let me ask you this question, and then do you think that when say that whatever, I know Jeff Tate is playing in November, but say some other shows come out and announce that they're going to be hitting the road. Do you think there's going to be this pent up enthusiasm and people are going to get all the tickets that are available? Or I think they're going to be leery and it's going to be hard sell in the beginning.
I think you'll have enough people to buy tickets no matter what the criteria are, that I think these concerts are going to sell out like that.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think people are craving to get out, to be entertained, to do things, and you have to be shut out for so long. And I think it's just something that in mental health, alone, it's going to be really helpful for people to do stuff that they enjoy again.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, I know, Ed, for me, my MO of buying concert tickets the last couple of years has been don't buy them the day they go on sale and wait, because a few months later, Ticketmaster will reduce the prices. You get them cheaper. I don't think that's going to happen this go around. Yeah. I think it's going to go back to the old way where you have to snap up tickets right away because they could sell out. That's just a gut feeling, but I think people are going to be very anxious to get back out there to concerts. That's just my opinion.
I think so too. I think I'm also going to keep an eye on, this week, I think they just started with the NHL and NBA are allowing fans into Madison Square Garden now in the Barclays Center. And I'm curious to see how that goes. And assuming if that goes well, then I'll be obviously more comfortable as well.
Do you know if those events sold out? Because I haven't been keeping up with it.
I believe the Knicks have. I'm not certain about the Nets. I know I did get a text that they were putting single seat. They initially were doing it for season ticket holders, and now the Nets, I got an email from them that they were going to now open it up to people who don't have season tickets to buy tickets for a single game. So we'll see what happens.
Interesting. All righty. Well, I guess on that note, my question to anybody watching this, will you go to shows this summer if there are any? Do you think there's going to be any shows? And what show are you willing to break your rules for, like we said before, and go no matter what the criteria are? I'm curious to see what people have to say about that. Any other thoughts that either of you? Oh, Vin's getting an album. Your Wasp album? Is that who you're going to break your rules for? Wasp? I'll tell you this, Vin. Yeah. I was a Wasp fan in the 80s. They haven't played the States in at least, I think, 10 years. Maybe.
Well, that's why I kind of just brought that, because you and I have been talking. You had Chris Holmes on, and they haven't played together in quite some time. So I was just thinking. Yeah,
I don't know why.
As I looked at my video.
Yeah, Wasp does not play the States at all. I've seen them a couple of times, but I don't know if I break my rules to see them, but they'd probably be high on my list right now. Because I'd like to see. Yeah, I would.
You would.
I would.
Are you kidding?
I would. So, anything else you guys thinking about with the lack of concerts for the last year that you guys want to bring up?
One thing I was a little surprised we didn't see more like streaming concerts. I know Kiss had the pay-per-view show, but I thought we'd see more of that, and I was surprised that we didn't. And I was hoping to see that, but obviously it didn't happen as much as I would have liked it to. But I'm surprised they didn't take into tap into that market at all.
I actually did 3 streaming concerts in a matter of like 5 weeks in December. I did a Little Caesar streaming concert, Kiss, and Jewel, all within, I'm going to say maybe within 3 weeks of each other. And I thought that, to your point, that there was going to be some momentum around that, and then it just faded away. At least for the bands I listened to, it just faded away. It's a great point, Adam. I'm surprised that more bands didn't do that. You would think they would have.
Yep.
Yeah, I know The Circle with Sammy Hagar. I love what they would do, and they would just like releasing videos on YouTube like every month or so of like different things that they were jamming together. I thought that was cool, but yeah, no other streaming stuff. I wonder why. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I think Metallica did a streaming show also, right? Didn't they?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so, but I didn't catch that one. So,
Nor did I.
Yeah. Anything else, fellas? I think we'll take that silence to mean we're a wrap for this one. All righty. Well, as always, thank you everybody for watching. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you thought about what it was like to not having concerts for the last year, what you're looking forward to. Do you think they're going to come back? And that's it for this episode. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Ed, for joining us. We'll hopefully have to have you back before I do another 100 episodes. And,
thanks, Mike, for having me.
Maybe you could go, Ed, to the first concert at the Garden when it reopens, and then you could talk about the comparison.
Report back.
That's right.
I think I have to do that for my homework assignment. I like that idea.
I like that idea too. And then you'll have to report back what the first concert at the Garden was like.
And compare it to the last. I like
That's
that.
Right. All right. Very good. Well, thank you guys both for joining. Everybody, thanks for watching. Peace out. Talk to you later. All righty. There you have it. Our thoughts and our experiences of a year without concerts. We look forward to hearing your comments and your thoughts on what the year was like for you, going without pretty much any concerts throughout the entire year. We'd also like to hear your thoughts and comments on what you expect this current year to be like as well. Oddly enough, right after we filmed this, we found out that Mick Fleetwood and Lindsey Buckingham were in conversations about doing some type of recording together, either as a solo project or Fleetwood Mac, so that was pretty cool. Also, the next day, Kix announced another drive-in concert this May, and I look forward to attending that as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you next time.